Good morning, everyone. I hope you are all doing fine. Welcome back to the next session on costing, which is in continuation of what we did till now. We have discussed material costing, labor costing, overhead, and as I discussed on Tuesday, guys, this session is more or less pretty much in line with, in continuation with what we had on Tuesday with respect to the overhead, specifically the absorption method of costing. So, why we are here today is we are talking about situations where we have probably calculated the overhead cost based on the traditional method of accounting, which was majorly based on something called as an absorption, uh, based on the volume-driven parameters. Like we calculated how do we absorb the factory overheads, right? The manufacturing overheads. We had a lot of parameters which we discussed: material, prime cost, labor, and I told you in the last class that majorly we talk about direct labor hours or machine hours, right? And that means we are talking about computing the costing based on the volume, guys. Now, the interesting fact here is many a times it may happen that there could be some overheads, there could be some expenses that may not be directly related to volume. Uh, and I'm sure you guys agree with me, right? So, think about a situation where a particular uh, you know end product is less in quantity, less in volume, but there are costs attached to it which are significantly higher. One example I gave on Tuesday's session was, let's say we are talking about something called as a product redesign cost. Now, redesign cost coming from a design, coming on from research, and it could be result in a significant amount of expenses as an overhead which gets into the costing. Now, if I am distributing the redesign cost across all the products based on the volume, I'm giving injustice to two parts here. One, there could be some products in which there may not have been any redesign. Let's say the company is dealing into five products, guys. Two products, nothing changed. Another two products or another three products, some design changed. So, so if I may ask you guys, if we are taking this example, let's say a product redesign cost, do you think that that cost should be scattered, should be spread over all the five products? Or ideally, that should be more absorbed by those products which had some kind of a redesigning going on? What do you think, guys? Question for everyone here. We are looking at a product redesign cost. Should that be absorbed on the basis of the volume across all the five products, or ideally, they should be absorbed more on those products wherein much of a redesign was happening here, and those went through the redesign process during that period. Anyone would like to answer here or on the query panel? Kiran says no. So Kiran agrees that okay, it ideally should not be spread across all the five products, right? So basically, what we are trying to say here is, guys, traditional costing, because of these situations, may give some inaccurate cost information. And the reason is that we are basically absorbing those overhead costs mainly either on direct labor hours or machine hours. Now, these rates assume that products that take longer to make generate more overheads. Is it a is it a correct assumption? Maybe, may not be, depending on which overhead cost I'm talking about. But holding that assumption always true may not be a good practice here. That's one piece. So what we're discussing here, guys, is we have to understand a better way of absorbing the overheads in terms of something called cost driver. Something like we need to understand what drives the cost. What is the parameter that results in incurrence of cost? Should we allocate those costs to the products, to the activities which resulted in cost rather than just because there are huge volumes and we allocate these costs? And that is what the topic of the day is: activity based costing, guys. So from an overview perspective, what I'm trying to tell you is that yes, there are issues with the traditional costing systems. Why? Because we are looking at a situation that it can result in an inaccurate costing. And in terms of other factors, like we're talking about here, why ABC or how ABC came into existence, I think there are a lot of factors which can go behind this. One is definitely the way the production, the way the technology has moved on over the decades from erstwhile manual methods to the modernized automated methods. I think more competition. I think one thing is very important, guys, and I'm sure you guys can correlate this. So let's say a company is dealing into multiple products. There would be competitors. And if ask you guys that why the pricing is very, very important. See, uh, there would be competitors pricing the same product. You will have your own prices. Unless and until you have accurate costing system, you may do a little bit of an error in pricing the product. If your cost is inaccurate, let's say you have allocated more overheads to a product which actually did not result in more cost, you're ending up pricing that product higher. What if your competitor is having a better pricing strategy, better costing strategy? They are pricing the product lower, and hence you are losing the volume in the market, and can be vice versa as well. So it's very, very important, guys. We understand that yes, there has been increasing competition, so you have to in line with what everyone has been doing, in fact, ahead of them. And of course, with respect to availability of information, as I said, uh, also with automation, a lot of new systems have evolved. Specifically, implementation of the new system may not be involving so much cost. So I think that is why the evolvement of modernized costing systems such as ABC is kind of very much important here. And when I say that, there are a lot of other factors also, because uh, traditionally in a manufacturing organization and even today's world, there are significant number of overheads. Most of the companies have wide range of products. And one more important aspect here is, guys, sometimes there are non-value added activities. For example, if I talk about simply a manufacturing setup, you're talking about something like material handling. That will be very, very important for issuing the products from the stores to the production line to the but it is still a cost, right? It may not be directly contributing to the value the product kind of gives us, but it is still a cost incurred. So it is like more of uh, a factor that there are costs which are not directly related to the volume. As I said, product redesign cost, material handling cost, inspection cost. So in those costs, we have to be very much considerate of the fact that which are the products which require more of those activities that result in incurrence of additional cost. So that's why we will be talking about all of these factors here, why ABC is important, how we allocate cost under activity-based costing. Uh, we will be identifying various activities, and not only that, we will understand application of ABC in terms of a couple of tools, activity-based management and budgeting. I remember interesting a Bollywood movie. I'm sure some of you would have watched that movie called Gold. I don't know if anyone remembers the movie called Gold. I think it starred Akshay Kumar, right? Based on a hockey team. What is? If I'm not wrong. So Gold, which was, I believe it was hockey, right? So he was building a team. I don't know if anyone has watched this movie here. Uh, and he was building a team, and he was a new coach in that particular movie. And what he did was he called all the players, and he asked the players to go to the ground, pick the bricks from one corner of the ground, and take those bricks to other corner of the ground. So suddenly, every player on the ground thought, okay, this is the kind of a race. Whosoever picks more bricks may win and may be selected in the team. So everyone started doing that. Everyone started doing a kind of a cat race and started to pick the bricks, keeping from one side to other side. And they came back to the coach. Coach was looking at them, and he said, "Go back and do it again." It happened two or three times. People started to work around the same way they had, but they started getting tired, but they also started realizing that there is some catch. Why this coach is telling us again and again to pick corners from left to right, pick the bricks from left, put it in the right, to pick the bricks from the right, put it back to the left? Why is he doing that? There's a catch. There's something we are missing here. someone had stuck that, okay, there may be a better way of doing it. So suddenly what they did was, suddenly what all the players on the field did, they stood in a line, guys, holding each other hand. And then the person on the extreme would pick the brick and pass it on to the other players. They evolved a team player. They understood, okay, that's what probably this coach is trying to evolve. Similarly, with modernized techniques of costing, such as ABC, we will understand like this also can result into things like product reengineering, identification of non-value added activities. We are actually getting into the details of what are the activities that are involved. Is there any activity which can be done away with? Can a product redesign help us to improve the system, improve the quality of the product, get away with any kind of a non-value added activity which doesn't make sense? I can give many examples, guys. A kind of a consumer, a product, guys, which is like Johnson's baby powder. I remember uh, 20 years ago, probably, Johnson's baby powder used to come with come in a white box, white hard plastic box, and over the number of years, what happened? They came up with some design packaging outside. They tried to make it more sellable, more, the appearance looked better. But then suddenly, what happened here? Almost like 10 or 12 years ago, outer body of that powder was little lighter, not that hard, a box which used to be there earlier, the container or the bottle, whatever you want to call it as. And not only that, the lid from which the powder comes in became transparent from the hard plastic. It became a very lighter, transparent lid. I don't know how it is appearing these days. But what came to notice from a costing perspective is that yes, maybe the industry realized, the company realized that okay, their product is being sold not because of the quality of the outer material, right? Their product was being sold not because of the quality of the outer material, but it was sold because what is there inside that particular container. So they try to eliminate maybe any non-value added cost in terms of eliminating some activities, getting rid of heavy heavy material which results in packing and heavy handling costs. So just some examples to think about, guys, why ABC came into the picture. Anyways, so we can see more and more people join. So good morning, everyone, again. So those who joined a little later. So we will be starting now with the ABC or activity based costing. So the first is very important to understand what is activity based costing itself. So this is, as we say, an approach to the costing. Uh, or other, in other words, it actually involves monitoring of activities, which involves tracing resource consumption and costing final products. These are the two elements. Good morning, Rashmi. So these are two important elements here: tracing the resource consumption and costing the final output. So the ultimate objective is to cost the final output by tracing the resource consumption. So think it that way. Products which are taking more of those activities that require more resource consumption should absorb more of the cost. Simple fact. And vice versa. So we should assign the resources to the activities and activities to the cost objects based on the consumption here. So I will be talking about these terminology also, guys, so that you guys are aware what is a cost driver, what is a cost object, what is a cost pool. So basically, it's important because we are joining them in such a way that a product which involves those activities which result in more incurrence of cost is kind of taking the higher proportion here. So it involves tracing the resource consumption. It involves assigning the resources to the activities. And of course, it involves utilizing the cost drivers to attach activity cost to the output. The most important word here is cost driver. What is a cost driver? Cost driver is anything that drives the cost. Wow, interesting definition, isn't it? Cost driver is something which drives the cost. So the example I have been taking since beginning is let's say product redesigning product redesigning or redesigning cost. So, what would be a cost driver for a redesigning cost? Can anyone think and let me know? What drives the cost when we talk about redesigning the cost? Maybe if you think about, the answer could be number of redesigns, number of design changes. More the number of design changes, more will be the redesigning cost. What could be the cost driver for material handling? I think volume, weight of the raw material, weight of the material, right? More the volume, more will be handling. Heavier the material, more will be the handling cost. So those are the things we will think, guys, and we will look at some examples also. So ABC or activity-based costing is nothing but an accounting methodology that assigns cost. This is important, that assigns cost to activities rather than products or services. Ultimately, you are costing products only, but we are not directly including these costs based on the traditional volumes. We are assigning these costs to the activities, and then accordingly, indirectly, they are kind of charged to those products which involve these activities. So, what is important is to identify the activities here. So that is why it becomes very important that it identifies the activities which cause cost to be incurred and searches for the fundamental drivers here. The example we just saw. Because once we know the activities, once we know the drivers, then it is becoming much more logical assign these costs. Okay, let me also give you a little bit of a correlation of what we did in absorption costing, right? I'm sure most of you would have gone back, gone through the chapter, did some practice. There was a step in terms of the absorption costing. Like there were few steps actually. I'm not even talking about the reapportionment right now of the service department cost. What I'm trying to say is that amongst other steps, we discussed one thing called apportionment of overhead, right? So we had initially estimate of overhead, allocation of the overheads to direct departments, apportionment, and then the reapportionment of the service department. So the step before the reapportionment was apportionment. So what we did in apportionment of overheads, we portioned the overhead basis some benefits received. Like we discussed various factors, like rent was portion based on the floor area, some HR expenses based on the number of workers and so on, right? We discussed a lot of factors in the last class. Now, today's discussion will be more with respect to the overheads which are related to the activities which are not. So what I'm trying to say is, guys, with ABC, we are not saying that the absorption costing becomes redundant. Nowhere we are saying that. There would be some overheads, there would be some overheads. Those are based on the volume. They will continue to be apportioned. Like, so for example, if I talk about a rent, guys, if I talk about rent, do you think rent is related to an activity? No, right? So rent will still continue to be, apportioned based on the floor area. Am I correct? So ABC cannot be applied to all the overheads, but with involvement of ABC, we can have an improved system of costing because at least those overheads which are related to activities can be, allocated better. Please try to understand. We are not saying that absorption is a redundant mechanism. No, right? So what we are saying is once the activities and the cost drivers have been identified, then you can use the same mechanism to assign the overheads, those products which are using more of these activities. In nutshell, the last line kind of hits the nail that it is giving us more realistic picture of the way in which cost behave, guys. More realistic picture, right? So let's understand some terminology here, and not only that, we'll also understand or give, see some examples here of how various functions or how various activities can be correlated with some of the cost drivers. So let's see some terminology here to start with it, and I will be spending some let's say around half an hour or so for some conceptual discussion, and then we will be having a lot of practice. So we have a lot of practice lined up here, a good illustration coming your way, and followed up with some questions as well. So let's first focus on some terminology here. So what is activity? Activity is an event that incurs cost. Activity is an event that incurs cost here. So what is resulting in the cost? As I said, number of redesigns. So what's an activity? Redesign is an activity. Handling cost. What is an activity? Handling. Material handling is an activity, right? Cost object. item for which the measurement is required. So I think this is my ultimate objective, right? So if I have to assign the cost to the product, so when we are saying that cost will be assigned to different cost drivers based on the activities, and ultimately that will be involved in the or incorporated in the cost object. Uh, Cost driver, that is something which drives the cost. I think this is a very, very easy definition. Anything that drives the cost, factor that causes a change in the cost. So there could be a resource cost driver, there could be an activity. What is resource here? Resource is a measure of quantity of resources consumed. We're talking about resource based on what that activity is consuming. Can anyone think of an example of a resource cost driver, guys? Resource cost driver? Any thoughts? Answers coming in material cost. Okay. So Rashmi, I think you're talking about material cost, which we anyways discuss as a direct material cost. So I don't think that would be anyway related to allocation using ABC. So I'm asking you from an overhead perspective. What could be a resource cost driver? What could be a resource cost driver? I think we can think of the same example we have been talking about this morning, right? What do you think? The redesign would involve the people in the engineering work study department or someone in a QC department that can bring up more designs, study of the market. So more the redesigns, more resources may be required, right? Similarly, we are talking about activity cost driver, measure of frequency and intensity of demand placed on activities by cost object. Now, the difference between the resource cost driver and activity cost driver is we are using the resource cost driver, assign the cost of a resource to an activity, cost of a resource to an activity. So cost of a person, let's say there is an overhead cost which relates to a person who's or person or a department who's involved into redesign. So we are allocating the entire redesign cost to the number of redesigns over there. But if you're talking about an activity cost driver, it is used to assign the activity cost to the cost objects. That means once that activity cost is, kind of compiled, think that okay, we have bucketed the entire cost under one activity and then based on the number of activities consumed by the different products, we are allocating that to the product. So what we are saying here is that we may be involving both resource cost drivers and activity cost drivers step by step. Similarly, cost pool is nothing but a group of individual cost items wherein you may have a direct cause and effect relationship. The biggest example is we can bucketize certain activities under some, let's say broad headings under which the overheads which are not based on the traditional volume can be clubbed. So the biggest example here is machine setup here. We can think of other examples as well, apart from these. And if you talk about machine setup, we are talking about handling costs, assembling costs. All these can be cost pools. So basically, is what we are trying to say is that we are bucketizing the activities under different heads. Now, on the right hand side here, you guys can see a lot of examples which are cost drivers here that we'll be using under ABC. So, for example, R&D. If there is a R&D cost, and if that can typical cost pool. So cost drivers would be the number of research. So if let's say under a couple of departments there are more R&D projects going on, so more research and development costs should go to those departments. Similarly, customer service, number of customer service calls, distribution, distribution cost. Now, this something can be related to volume in such a way because the cost driver itself could be number of units distributed. So, as I said, the traditional costing mechanism is not redundant here, guys. There could be still some departments that would be based on or directly the volume as well, right? So, Even marketing costs sometimes are related to, either we are talking about the number of advertisements, number of sales, or the sales revenue. So we may be getting the efficacies in those areas where we are separating the cost from the volume and taking them to the activities. Cost which continue to be allocated or apportioned using the volume, that is where we are saying that, okay, alignment is still there like a traditional cost system. So do not think, I'm again repeating, that traditional costing is not redundant here. It's just that we are improving the mechanism by aligning some cost to the activities, right? So if I compare the two, activity-based or traditional costing system, we are looking at basic high level understanding here that in the traditional absorption costing, the step we discussed, right, the apportionment in the last class, we were directly relating them to the various departments, whereas under activity based costing, we are relating them to activities here and then grouped under those cost pools. Similarly, we are talking about more realistic costing, that is our ultimate objective, and involvement of cost drivers is there. We are talking about first identifying the activity wise cost recovery rates, then assigning those to those cost pools. Whereas in the traditional costing, we used to calculate the predetermined overhead rate based on either direct labor hours or direct machine hours, right? So one more important aspect, guys, which we'll be seeing later on after some practice, is under activity based costing. We are also using that analysis to do a little bit of a re-engineering. What is re-engineering? That is, we may be able to identify the activities which are not that relevant for the product or can be redundant, can be eliminated by not impacting the quality. So we are saying any unnecessary activities can actually be eliminated when we are following ABC costing. I would say this is more of a byproduct of this costing mechanism, but it is very, very significant, right? Whereas under the traditional absorption costing, we could not do that because we are not even studying the overhead in incurrence to that granular level. So uh, let's do one thing, guys. Let's understand the stages here of the activity based costing, and then we will work together in an example. And I want everyone to be involved here. Let's first look at stages in the activity based costing. First step here is identify the different activities within the organization. Identify the activities within the organization. So that's my first step here. In terms of the hierarchy or the steps, when we're saying that we identify the different activities, we will need to know that this I can say it also depends on how the management structure, the organization structure is, or how the management departmentalization here is. If there are multiple activities under different departments, for example, we talk about uh, purchasing department doing some stuff, or assembly department is involving in some kind of a setup, or there is a quality control team, material handling team. So it kind of depends, when we are saying different activities, it will depend on how the management has divided those activities among different departments. So that has to be the first step, because ultimately we have to identify the activities here, and then we have to relate the overheads to those activities. Whatever the overheads. So basically, here is the important, I would say, thin line difference that comes in from the traditional costing system, that you are bifurcating, okay, these are my overhead costs, and these overhead costs are directly associated with certain activities, so that we can allocate more cost to those activities which are incurred more here. Rashmi says indirect cost, absolutely correct. Support activities then are spread. The next step here is support activities are then spread across the primary activities. What do we mean by this? Basically, what we're trying to say here is that using a cost driver, we will be spreading these costs to those departments. And for that, we need to determine the cost driver itself. So cost driver is something that drives the cost, right? So let's do one thing, guys. Let's kind of understand these steps, how we are actually doing it. So what we are doing is we are identifying the cost drivers, we are calculating the cost driver, and then based on that, we are allocating the cost to the activities. Let's do one thing. Let's kind of jump into a very interesting, comprehensive example here, wherein we'll be doing two things, guys. I want you to understand that we will be comparing how the costing would have been done in a traditional costing, in a absorption costing base, which we learned on Tuesday, and how this can result in a different costing system if we follow ABC. And you will yourself realize that why this becomes important, because as I said earlier, that if my costing is inaccurate, ultimately the pricing could be impacted. And we are talking about a competitive world here. If we are pricing the product not so good or not so perfectly, our competitor has a better study of their cost and they are pricing the cost differently, we may lose some sales volume. So that's it's very, very important. So I hope everyone is ready, everyone is geared up for a good example here. So let's see together here. I hope everyone can see the illustration, and I would request everyone to participate. So let's do one thing. I want you guys, maybe you guys can take a snapshot of this details, because then would want your involvement here, guys. I want you guys to give me answers. We'll solve it together, but at the same time, I would request your inputs here. So give me a second. So what we are looking here is Jackson Products makes two products at its Lexington factory. Company has used a traditional cost accounting system for application of the overheads to the products. Currently, we are saying currently it uses direct labor hours as an application basis. So is it an activity based or absorption? Who will tell me? Is it an activity based or absorption based? Or you can answer, is it a traditional method or a activity based method? I think it's traditional. We are talking about an example wherein currently they are absorbing these, they're applying these overheads based on the direct labor hours. And that's what we discussed on Tuesday when we were looking at that step of portioning the cost over there. So Rashmi, this is not activity based, although some overheads may still be portioned based on the same parameters. But currently, we're saying that they are using the direct labor hour for all the overhead, which may not be relevant for activity based costing. So they're talking about two products. One product, which is cans, incurred 300,000 or 3 lakhs direct labor hours. And other product they are making is a bottle, which is involving 90,000 direct labor hours. The company is considering converting this to an activity-based costing system. And the estimated data for year one operations is summarized for your reference. What we need to do is compare the overhead application rate under the traditional absorption system and activity-based costing system. So what we'll do is we'll first start solving it using the traditional method. We see what kind of a cost are assigned to both these products, cans and bottles. And then we will see, we can follow the activity based costing system if we see that can we get more accurate cost. You will yourself see. And I will ask you reasons of the variations later on, guys. So I want everyone to be involved. I want answers. So if I want to start with, the applying overhead or absorbing the overhead based on the traditional system, what should be my first step? What ideally should be my first step, guys? Anyone? Let's see if you guys are answering on the query panel. What should be my first step here? How do we approach? Sweetie, absolutely correct. Sweetie says it's absorption based. So that's what currently they are doing because they are using the direct labor hours. So what will be my first step? So mind you, I'm not even starting activity based right now. I'm talking about the traditional system. So when I say that they use the direct labor hours, some of you might think that, okay, do we need a rate per direct labor hour? Do we need an absorption rate? Yes. But what's the formula for the absorption rate? Guys, think it that way. What's the formula? We calculate an estimated overhead, budgeted overhead upon the budgeted total hours. We are already given the estimated hours here, or we are talking about some hours which are there for both the products, 3 lakhs and 90,000. But do we have estimated overheads? Yes, we have estimated overheads. So we are talking about overheads uh, which are given to us here. So it says calculate the total overhead incurred. Absolutely correct. So we are given overheads which involves material handling, production orders, product redesign, and plant utilities. So let's calculate the total overheads here as a first step. So we're getting 62 lakhs 40,000. Just want to check if you guys are with me on this. My total overhead is 62 lakh 40,000. So if I were to calculate my traditional costing approach, and we are calculating the overhead application rate here, we're saying total overheads upon what? Labor hours, right? So what should be my denominator, guys, based on the information we have? What should be my denominator here? Let's see what are the answers I'm receiving here. Now, this is something we did on Tuesday. My denominator should be total labor hours. So that means 3 lakhs plus 90,000. That's what given to us for both the products here. 3 lakhs for cans and bottles, 90,000. So it will be 3 lakhs 90,000. So if we see what would be my overhead application rate based on direct labor hours, that's what given to us in the question. It comes out to be 16 per hour. 16 per hour. I hope that makes sense. In that case, if I were to see what amount of cost is absorbed by both the products, that means cans and bottles. Let's see this. For cans, we are looking at 3 lakhs hours multiplied by 16. We are looking at a 48 lakhs here. And for bottles, 90,000 into 16, 14 lakh 40,000. That's what's happening here. Now, if I have to see how much is the overhead cost absorbed by each unit of can and bottle here, because that would end up in the overall costing and ultimate pricing of the product. What do I do from here? We are also given the volume here. Units of cans and bottles are given 10 lakhs of cans and 3 lakhs of bottles here. So if I were to calculate the per unit amount here, so we know that okay, the volume is given to us here. So per unit of overhead that is absorbed under traditional absorption costing here becomes 4.8 per can here. And what is in the terms of bottles? I think 4.8 itself, right? So see what has happened here. Under the traditional absorption costing mechanism, what we are looking at here is, since we have gone strictly with the volume based on the direct labor hours, rather than looking into the details, we are kind of getting almost equitable allocation per unit of the product, which may or may not be the case. As I said earlier, it is not that We are making this absolutely redundant, but we need to improve our costing mechanism. Is everyone with me till now, guys? Because the requirement over there was to do a comparison, right? Compare the overhead application under the traditional absorption system with the activity-based costing system here. So if I talk about the activity-based costing system, what should we do? What should we do, guys? Then? What we have done till now is the traditional mechanism. But once we need to work around the activity-based, the first step ideally, and what we saw earlier is identify the different activities, guys. The steps we saw, identify the different activities here. That's the first step. And I believe uh, the information itself has been kind enough to give us those activities because I can see here respective activities already bifurcated: material handling, production orders, product redesign, and plant utilities. When I started discussing about activity based costing, we did some examples, we took some examples. One of those examples was material handling. So let me ask you guys, what did we talk about in terms of the material handling? And what do you think rationally, what element would drive the cost of material handling? What will drive the cost? What will increase the cost? What will reduce the cost? If I talk about material handling cost, request you guys to answer this. What will increase the cost? What will drive the cost when I talk about specifically material handling? Anyone on the query panel? On Zoom, guys, please answer. I'm again repeating my question. What will drive the cost for material handling? What element? The name itself is material handling. Sweetie says volume of production. Hmm. Can we be more specific, Sweetie, rather than only directly looking at the final product volume here? Human says plant utilities. Okay. What are we doing here? What is the activity? Material handling. That is handling the raw materials. So what do you think, guys? More would be the weight of the material. More would be the cost. So can I say the weight of the material could be an interesting cost driver here? Look at the information they have given us pounds here, pounds or kgs or whatever the denomination here is. We are looking at the weight of this materials here. So if you see, there are weights given to us for cans and bottles. So very logically, if you see the weight per unit of bottle will be more, obviously. You can see cans weight is given more because the units, the cans volume are actually higher here, 10 lakhs. So I think, so we are getting 2 lakhs of pounds or 1 lakh 20,000 of pounds. That would be resulting in a material handling cost. Similarly, we discussed a product redesign. And we already talked about this in the first 15 minutes that number of design changes. Sushil is giving me an answer. Material handling is based on the weight of the material. Absolutely correct. So that's what we did. So we talk about material, product redesign. So if there are changes, if there are redesigns happening, that should be the cost driver, and that's what is given to us. Number of changes, production orders. If this is my cost, then depends on how many times I have ordered a particular raw material, and we discussed that in the material session that based on the process, one of the initial steps was the purchase orders, raising the purchase orders based on the requisition and the based on the bids that were received. Is everyone clear on this? So what we are saying here is we are looking at the the number of POs here. So that could be a good you know uh, a cost driver here. Now we are also talking about plant utilities. I think plant utilities is something which is we're looking at, let's say, lubricants, oil. That is something we are allocating here based on the machine art itself. As I said, not all the overheads can be directly associated with specific activities. That's where the thin line here is that even the traditional mechanism of allocating overhead holds good for some of the activities here. So it's not that we cannot use labor hours or machine hours, absolutely. If there is an overhead for which the labor hour or a machine hour is the best cost driver, why not? Now, that's the catch. How do we work around activity-based costing system? Now, under ABC, instead of having one overhead application rate, we'll be having multiple application rates for respective activities. So, for example, the first one is material handling here. What is the handling cost given to us? 9,60,000. What are the number of, what is the total of the weights we are getting? Can we add them up? 2 lakhs plus 1,20,000. So you're saying 3,20,000 here. So if I were to allocate this cost, so my answer would be 3 per pound. Similarly, we are looking at production orders. Ordering cost is given to us 1,80,000, and number of orders are given us as 200 and 200 both, like 200 each for cans and bottles. So that means we are looking at a total of 400 here. So this is what this is comes out to 450 per order. Then we are looking at product redesign. So my redesign costs are given to us as 5 lakhs, and the number of changes I can see is 100 for cans and 400 for bottles. So we're looking at 5 lakhs here. My total number of redesigns is 500. So 1,000 per redesign here. And similarly, the last one is utilities, which I said that the best is still the machine hours here. 46 lakhs divided by the number of machine hours, which is given to us as 3 lakhs and 1,60,000. So 4,60,000. Which means we are looking at a 10 per machine hour here. Wow. I think you guys might already getting a feeling here that this looks more logical, isn't it? Instead of having a one traditional rate of absorbing the overhead, which we did in the traditional costing mechanisms. So if you see this comparison already, guys, we are looking at a 16 per hour, irrespective of the activities, directly based on the volume we did. Here we are talking about four different overhead rates depending on the different activities here. I hope the initial understanding, the application part is clear to everyone. So let's go to the next step then. The next step was involving in terms of how do we apply, how do we cost, how do we absorb these costs based on these rates. Let's talk about both cans and bottles here. So let's do one thing. Let's make two columns here, cans and bottles. And we're talking about one by one handling. Yes, please let me know if there are any doubts till now. So we have got the rate of 3 per pound, right? So how do we allocate to the cans and the bottles? 2 lakhs into 3 and 1 lakh 20,000 into 3. So we are looking at the respective drivers here. 2 lakhs into 3 is 6 lakhs. 1 lakh 20,000 into 3 is 360. And simultaneously, you guys can keep a check whether your total is allocated or not. So for example, 6 lakhs plus 3 lakh 60,000 is 960. That's what you want to account for. Ordering, we had 450 per order. So which seems 200 each. So that means 90,000 for both the products. I hope you guys are getting how we are calculating these numbers. If not, please let me know. I can again repeat. Handling cost, we calculated based on the activity. Cost driver, which was handling itself, was based on the weight, P per pound. So the weights were given to us for both the products. We multiply that application rate onto the weights here. 3 into 2 lakhs, 6 lakhs. 3 into 1 lakh 20,000. We are looking at 3 lakhs 30,000 here. That gives us the total of 960. So I think next, let's do one thing, guys. Next is I want you guys to tell me, if I were to allocate the redesign cost, waiting for your responses, how much should I take for cans and how much should I compute for bottles here? Considering that we are talking about 1,000 per redesign here. Waiting for your responses for redesign. So let's see who answers first. So looking at the query panel, Unikrishnan says 1 lakhs and 4 lakhs. What about others? Anyone here on the Zoom? Kiran, Sayanto. So 1,000 into 100 and 1,000 into 400, I'm assuming, Unikrishnan, that's what you did, right? So we are getting this as 1 lakhs and 4 lakhs. And the last one is utilities. So what about utilities? Utilities, we got 10 per hour. Correct, Hemant? Absolutely correct. Hemant also said 1 lakhs and 4 lakhs here for cans and bottles. So 10 per hour, and we are looking at 3 lakhs and 1 lakh 60,000 here. So 30 lakhs and 16 lakhs. So we have allocated these overheads now, guys, based on the activity-based mechanism. Now we need to see how does this get absorbed into per unit of the product. So let's total these. Let's total these for respective products here, cans and bottles here. Please double check for any calculation issues. All are with me, I hope. We're getting 3790 and 2450 so far. And what do we have with us is also the volumes given to us as 10 lakhs and 3 lakhs. So if I were to look at can here, we are looking at a 3790 upon 10 lakhs, which is 3.79. And bottle is 24 lakhs 50,000. The number of units were given to us as 3 lakhs here. So what we're getting here is 8.17. 8.17. So overhead application based on ABC is 3.79 and 8.17 here. Hemant says 8.16. Yeah, I just rounded off 8.166 or 167. That's okay. Hemant. So now is the key part, guys. Compare this. Let me use a different color pen here. Let me resort back to the green here. What was under the traditional one versus 4.8 for cans versus 4.8 for bottles. Do you see a comparison here coming up? Do you see a difference in the overhead cost allocation in the traditional and activity based? So we followed, if we would have followed the traditional mechanism of absorbing the overhead for these products, my question to all of you is, my friends, what is the probability which of the products would have been underpriced? Which of the products would have been underpriced at the organization? Let's see what is the answer I'm getting. So we are looking from the industry perspective, we're looking from a Jackson's products company perspective. There would be competitors, there would be competitors like Coca-Cola or other companies. What is the probability here where one of the products could be overpriced and one of the products could be underpriced? So if I'm allocating 4.8, I would be pricing it based on 4.8 because so if I'm including the overhead cost of 4.8 for cost cans, my overall cost, material, labor, overhead would be, what will happen here is my cans pricing will be based on 4.8 versus it should be 3.79. So I think, Hemant, just think it again, please. Think it over again. And my question is, what is the consequence of pricing under traditional mechanism, under the traditional absorption costing? So if my cans were having a higher amount to be allocated, 4.8, so probably, don't you think cans would have been overpriced? Just thinking logically here. Because what is happening here is water, in this case, seems to be absorbing higher resources and more cost. So the cost of cans is actually reduced from 4.8 to 3.79. So initially, I would say that maybe cans would have been overpriced if we were using traditional costing mechanism. Whereas bottles were also allocated 4.8, so they would have an underprice now. The real cost of bottle, the overhead cost that should be absorbed by a bottle is actually 8.17. And if you look at why this is a discrepancy, why there is so much of a difference, I think the facts given in the question should be giving you the answers for this. So if I were to analyze this difference, who will tell me why suddenly a bit of cost tilted towards bottle? Initially, we were saying 4.8 each, but now we are saying 3.79 versus 8.17. So what made this cost a little bit more towards, cost allocation a little higher towards bottle? No worries, Hemant. That's absolutely fine. My question is, what activity resulted in this correction here? I think one of the good answers here would be the product redesign. I can see earlier 5 lakhs were purely based on allocating this 5 lakhs purely based on the volume, but now we are allocating more of the redesign cost to the bottles here. Yes, can you see that? Because my ratio or my drivers were 100 and 400 here. So 80% cost is actually going to the bottles rather than distributing the cost based on the simple volume. This is just one example. This is just one example. We'll do some more practice towards the end, but I wanted to give you an exposure here a perfect example how an activity-based costing can result in a better picture here. This will ultimately help the organization in pricing the product more accurately. In this fast-paced competitive environment, that becomes of paramount importance here. I hope everyone is doing good with the example here. Can you please confirm, guys? Any questions? Let me check the query panel as well. Yes, absolutely. So a couple of responses were that bottle was definitely underpriced. Unikrishna says direct labor used for bottle is very low in comparison of cans because of traditional. You can say that. You can say that as one of the interpretations here. Because what we are looking at is the cost were going less to the bottles. And I think probably because I think as an overall concluding remark, I can also say that it's because Unikrishna, the bottles production was less, right? So since bottles were 3 lakhs, cans were 10 lakhs, we actually had ended up giving less cost allocation to the bottles, whereas instead of 4.8, though they should be 8.17 here. Good example here. So I think looks very interesting, but let's see if you can answer a couple of brain teasers here. So based on whatever we have seen in this illustration, the time for a couple of MCQs. So please answer by mentioning which question you are referring to. Your answer should be prefixed by question number 1 or 2. So first is question number 1. Which of the following is not an advantage of ABC? Waiting for your responses. Okay, some responses coming on the query panel here also. I think everyone is telling me question number 1 should be C. Let's see that. Which of the following is not an advantage? I think elimination works out good in some MCQs, but we will see a little bit of a drawback of ABC in a while as well. So more accurate product costing is actually an advantage. So this cannot be the answer here. Enhanced control over overhead cost. Of course, if you are having a more accurate costing, you can have a better check. So this is definitely not an advantage. Identification of inefficient activities. I think I mentioned that earlier that it also results in identifying the non-value added activities and getting rid of that. When we discussed the example of that movie Gold, right? How those players were picking the bricks from one corner to the other corner, and you know that they were not a value added activity, right? So that cannot be an answer. But if I look at option number C, that gives me a bit idea here that that means activity based costing involves some efforts, right? Does it actually simplify the costing process or does it require more efforts? I think it may require more efforts here if I understand activity based costing, because I have to analyze activities, we have to train the staff, we have to split the activities, specify the processes, define the activities, identify the cost. A lot of work, a lot of work is there, right? So of course, from an initial standpoint, definitely it is not a simplified process, but once we keep do that hard work, once we do that implementation, later on it will yield its result. Initially, of course, it in answer option number C for question number 1 here. Okay, good guys. I think many people answered that correctly. 1 or 2 students mentioned option number D, but I think C is a better option here. Let's move to question number 2 then. Which of the following statements is true about activity-based costing? Waiting for responses. think based on what I've discussed for question number one, question two becomes slightly easy, but good that I can see many people giving a unanimous response for question number two. So we are getting a response here as C, I guess, for most of the students. Which of the following student statements is true about ABC here? Option number A, it is most beneficial for companies with a single product line. Now that's a catch here. ABC could be an advanced mechanism, but is it suitable for a single product line? It doesn't make sense, right? Because see, if I'm into a single product, whatever mechanism I'm following, I'm allocating the overheads to that particular product. So it may not be as useful for a single product line. So hence it may not be true. It ignores non-manufacturing costs. I don't think it is ignoring anything. We are considering all the costs that could be associated with the respective activity. So it's not definitely true. Option number D said it is easier to implement than traditional costing. I think this is the fact which I said, right? That was a reason for the answer for question number one, that that initially the costing process have to be relooked and it may not be simplified actually. And that's why it is not easy to implement, but once you put in those efforts, it yields the result. So this is not the answer. But if I look at option number C, that's what we did in that example also, that if we have more accurate cost information, we can better price our products, guys. So option number C again here are the answers. So absolutely perfectly answered by all of you. Good job, guys. So whatever we have discussed so far in terms of the activity-based costing, yes, we are looking at moving a step ahead from the traditional absorption costing system, identifying the activities, leading into the better, information to us in terms of the cost drivers. So let's understand, okay, that based on this is what are the steps we may need or an organization may need for implementing ABC here. So we are looking at various steps that may be involved in the implementation of activity-based costing here. So in terms of the steps involved, we are looking at simple step-down approach in terms of first point coming in as the staff training. Where staff training would be important, I think it's more of a pre-preparation, because see, ultimately you want to involve your people, involve your workforce. So they need to know what we are doing. They need to understand these concepts. So staff training is more of a prerequisite. Process specifications. I think again, once staff knows what's happening, they can actually help you to list down the activities. What are the different activities is kind of involved along with under very every process. So different people would be involved in different processes, and you may need an input initially from them. So I'm talking about point number two and three here. So for every process, every step, you would need what are the activities they are performing, so that you can fine tune, you can group certain activities together, where the cost can be allocated to. So that's important when we are looking at activity definition also, because that's, I would say, it's more of a prerequisite, guys. You have to define those activities at the very early stage. Otherwise, you're not, you know, uh, achieving your objective here. At the same time, what do you think? Can it result to kind of a overflooding? Too many processes, too many activities? Yes, of course. Initially, you may have to do a lot of analysis. You may approach different department representatives, giving you information about their respective processes, what are activities they are doing. It is, the costing department, is the cost accountant, have to just fine tune those activities into manageable and the reasonable number, which can be useful and relevant. At the end of the day, implementing any system, you have to keep into mind a cost benefit analysis. You cannot spend too much time, too much cost on implementing a system. It could result in a more cost than the benefits actually. So and then of course activity driver selection, like we saw, what drives the cost, for every activity which you have shortlisted, what drives the cost. So that's definitely one piece, and hence you can accordingly assign the cost to those cost drivers. So these are basic steps which we have already done in that illustration here. So from an advantages standpoint, of course, we have seen more accurate costing, logical overhead allocation. At the same time, we have not made the traditional overhead system redundant, because we saw that, okay, there's some overheads that could be still allocated using either labor hours or machine hours. That could be still possible. Better pricing coming in from the first point, because if you are having more accurate costing, you may be able to better price your products. And the fourth one, which we'll be talking about in a while also, is in terms of the re-engineering, benchmarking techniques. We'll see that, okay, if there are any non-value add activities that is not adding value. The example I gave you for the Johnson's baby powder, right? There are many products in the industry. You could see how they kind of got a change in their outlook in terms of the last couple of decades, not because they wanted to cut down the cost easily, but they wanted to identify for the reasons for which their product is not sold and cut down those activities. So it could help to identify any non-value added activities, of course, highlight any problem areas in that study, in that interim study. But everything comes at a cost. Everything comes at a cost here. We are looking at disadvantages. Of course, it can be time consuming, it can be more expensive. Question is, are we looking at ABC implementation at every organization? May not be. As we saw, it may not be relevant for an organization which is into a single product or any small firm, because of course it requires a lot of efforts. Involves identification of activities, cost drivers. It could be complex. So imagine if I correlate this the staff training factor itself, for a smaller firm, it may not be making sense, right? So for a large manufacturing organization, they are into different products. For them, ABC implementation will definitely be yielding more advantages, at least once it is implemented, right? In terms of indirect benefits, or when I say how do we use activity based costing in line with overall strategy, overall the objective of the organization, we need to understand applications of the activity based costing at a macro level. And when we're talking about a practical application, we need to understand, once we have activity based costing system, we may not only be able to use this as a decision making tool, but it can also help us to fine tune our processes, and it can also help us in our financial planning and analysis in the form of better budgeting exercise. So let's look at few applications of ABC, and after that we will be doing more practice, more questions. So how does the ABC help us in decision making tool? Of course, in terms of uh, understanding, in terms of you know uh, more information available, it can help us to be help the management to take better decisions, better informed decisions in terms of allocating the resources. Because what we are doing is we are correlating the cost to the various activities. And even we talk about, let's say, a material handling cost, or we are talking about any specific like redesign cost, we can actually take decisions with respect to what kind of designs map to the customer needs, what kind of raw material may be needed, in terms of also correlating that to the handling cost as well. So that is one factor that can help the management to take decisions at various stages. Uh, Another factor is, something like, if we have to introduce a new product line, or we have to change a vendor, can ABC help us? Why not? ABC can definitely help us, because we are talking about a significant advantage by correlating the cost to the activities consumed by you know various products, and that is where the decision can be facilitated. So I think the first 2 points are purely interrelated in terms of decision making into these streams. Then we are looking at the one more interesting decision making tool in terms of support role. So with ABC into place, this can support other teams as well. We are talking about supporting HR here. How it can help human resource. Again, the same example, who are performing these activities? Individuals, team members, people in different departments. And if we align this with our understanding, what we discussed in the earlier class of labor cost, remember we discussed, redesigning. Remember we discussed quality control, doing time and motion study. Can this drilling down into various activities assist also in the quality control team's objective of time and motion study? Why not? It can help them also to identify new levels of the performance as a KPIs. What is KPI? Key performance indicators. So this can help other departments also. Not only this, guys, this also helps in the pricing ultimately, right? So when I say decision making, of course, a lot of decisions are kind of involved here. So definitely, very rightly said that okay, activity-based costing can be a very interesting, important, significant decision-making tool. Then there is a concept called activity-based management. Big term, right? Heavy term here. So can be used as an activity-based management. Now, what is activity-based management? Activity-based management. So that means we are saying managing cost based on their activities. If I have to just break up their terminology here. So use of ABC to manage the cost at activity level is nothing but activity-based management. It is a discipline that would focus on our three E's: efficiency, effectiveness, and of course, as a result, economy. Because we want to see, so what is efficiency and what is effectiveness, guys? Effectiveness is achievement of objectives. Efficiency is how do we do that? So this helps us in how of things, how the objective is achieved. Efficiency. Now, there are various types of analysis that could be involved here in terms of activity-based management. One of them is cost driver analysis. Cost driver analysis. So when we know these are the cost drivers which are driving my cost, that can help us to reduce the cost in certain areas. Activity analysis. This is something I was talking about in terms of a business process re-engineering. Okay, can anyone tell me what do you mean by re-engineering? What do you mean by re-engineering? What do you mean by re-engineering, guys? See, one thing is that we are simply identifying some activities and we want to cut down on the non-value activities. That is one part. But sometimes we have to revamp the entire product model. We have to revamp the entire process. So re-engineering is basically working out the design from the scratch, changing the product outline. So it's actually it's a bigger term. So we may be requiring re-engineering, we may not be requiring re-engineering, but whatever it is, it would definitely involve the detailed drill down of the activities. Specifically, focuses on eliminating any non-value added activities which are not even yielding the ultimate objective of the product purpose. I'm sure many of you would have had experience when you go into a shopping mall, or have you ever filled in a feedback form where companies give you a form where they give you okay, please rank from 1 to 5 top 5 reasons for which you are buying their product. So what they do is they do these kind of surveys which help them to understand why the particular product is being in demand, what are the features none of the customers actually selected as their top 5 priorities. Then they can identify which are the areas they can fine tune a bit of cost here. uh, One important tool of or use under the activity based management is also the benchmarking, guys. Now what is benchmarking? Benchmarking is in terms of uh, when we talk about a benchmarking, we are talking about maybe comparing with the best processes in the industry. So it could be actually across the companies, it could be within the company. Benchmarking is basically comparing to the best practices. It could be one department to the other, it could be one organization to the other competitors. But mostly when we talk about internal information, we are talking about one department to other. So benchmarking can be, one aspect. And of course, it would ultimately impact the performance and performance measurement as well. Right? Think about a simple aspect of a QC team, quality control team. They would obviously want to achieve minimum defects, or they want to improve their productivity ratios. So all that can be achieved by not only by analyzing the activities, but also enhancing the performance measurement here. Another important application here is for activity based costing, friends, is activity based budgeting. Now when I'm talking about the budgeting, we are looking at a very high level aspect. Okay, getting some message from someone. Video not available. Guys, can you please? I think I'm sure I'm visible. You guys can see the slide, right? So we are looking at activity-based budgeting here, wherein we are looking at a very important aspect of ABC, which is using the ABC as a planning and budgeting tool here. So when I say, okay, planning and budgeting tool, how we are looking at this as a planning and budgeting tool, because when we are a planning and controlling tool, because we would have done this exercise on a recurring basis. So if I've initially implemented this tool, that can help us to draw down the budgets for the next periods at least, to ensure that we can control some cost, we can ensure we can plan the things better by comparing the actual and budgeted results. We can analyze the cause of the variations here. Whenever we do comparison, guys, the causation is very important. Cause of any variations. Because what happens is in the industry, when we talk about the business meetings of various departments, they represent their particular performance in, let's say, one slide or a document, where they see that, okay, this was our budget, this is our actual performance, what are the variants, what went wrong, what can be improved. So all that can be easily, I would say, facilitated if you have a root activity level detailed data with you. And that is why we are saying that, okay, analysis of the cost for each activity helps you in overall planning as well, in understanding the estimated requirement of resources. So all that is coming under, club under activity based budgeting here. So these are important applications which management can use once the ABC is implemented. Initial effort may be involved, initial time may be involved, and resultingly some cost is involved, but once you have the system in place, once the staff is trained, once they know what is expected out of them, you can really take benefit out of it in the later stages. And it can be evolved. Entire AB system can be involved as we are, kind of zooming into a lot of automation or even artificial intelligence and all. Okay, guys, I think enough of theoretical discussion. We have seen one comprehensive example. I want to move to a lot of questions practice here, but looking at the time, maybe we can have a quick break right now. And after the break, we can resume with some practice questions now. On the other side, we will be talking about some questions, and I'm sure you guys will participate and give your best out of it. So see you guys on the other side of the break, guys. Okay, folks, welcome back to the much deserving break. We now resume our session with some practice on activity-based costing here. Any questions till now, please let me know, friends. Okay, so let's talk about this question on the screen then. We're looking at JH Plastics Limited manufactures products S, M, and L. To date, simple traditional absorption costing system has been used to allocate the overheads to the products. The total production overheads are allocated on the basis of machine hours. So we are looking at the machine hours till now, and the machine hour rate has been given as a 240 per machine hour under the traditional absorption costing system. Selling prices are calculated by adding a markup of 40% of the product cost. There is information given to us for the most recent year, units for each of the products, direct material cost, labor, machine hours per unit, number of machine setups, number of POs, inspections. Management wishes to introduce activity-based method here, activity-based costing for attributing these overheads to the products, and has identified major cost pools for production overheads, and their associated cost drivers are given to us. So we are talking about purchasing department cost. So cost driver we discussed in the earlier example, number of purchase orders, machine setup cost as number of machines setups here, quality control cost, okay, that's number of inspections, and machining cost is machine hours. So again, we are not making the existing system completely redundant. When it talks about the machining cost, we are talking about the machine hours here. So the requirement here is calculate the total cost per unit and selling price per unit for the three products using the traditional costing and also ABC. And then we have to compare the difference here in terms of underpricing and overpricing. Very similar to what we've already seen, but in this case, we were just kind of getting a little bit of step ahead to the real selling price. How does it impact my selling price of the product, as I was talking about in the earlier example of cans and bottles here. Okay, so let's start discussing it, guys. So what will be my first step ideally in this case? The first step should be calculating the cost and selling price maybe under traditional method here. We can do that. Yeah. So let's start our calculation using the traditional costing approach. We are looking at three products here, S, M, L. Some information is directly given to us. Facing direct material, which is 158, 179, and 250. Then we're looking at a direct labor cost per unit. So be careful, guys. We are sometimes in some of the questions, I think students can make mistake by not giving attention to this unit measurement. Sometimes you may have a direct labor cost per hour, and you may have given hours required per unit. So you have to be very, very careful in terms of ensuring that we see the details, what has been given to us. So 40, 45, and 60 is what we have in this case. Now, the next element here comes into the overhead here, right? So I need your inputs, guys. I need your help. What will be the overhead based on the traditional costing for each of these products? Let me know, guys. Any thoughts? What all information would be relevant for us for allocating the overhead under traditional system here? Requesting your answers for SML. What will be the overhead here? People here on Zoom or on the query panel, please answer. The requirement we are looking at here is the overhead for all the three products S, M, and L. There is some information given above the table, I guess, that would be relevant for us. It is given as machine hour rate, 240 per hour, isn't it? So what will be the overhead per unit? I have got the rate per hour, 240, but in the table, I can see machine hours per unit is also given. So can we just take 240 per hour multiplied by this requirement here? So for example, for product S, we're talking about 0.3 hours per unit, right? So 240 into 0.3 then becomes 72. 240 into 0.40. How much we arrive at? 96. And 240 into zero point 0.5, we are looking at 120. Can I get a confirmation, guys? Is this 240 into number of hours per unit? Is it okay for everyone? Any doubts so far? Any doubts so far, guys? Based on this, what is my cost per unit? Let's quickly catch up that as well. You get 270 here, 320, and 430. 270, 320, and 430 here. And I believe in the question itself, we are talking about a pricing are calculated by adding markup of 40% of the product cost. So we can add the profit margin here. 270 into 40%. So we're looking at 108, 128, and 172. Hence, we arrive at a selling price per unit of 378, 448, and 602 under traditional costing approach. Any doubts so far? All doing good, guys? We will be now moving on to the activity-based costing approach, but need a confirmation. Till now, everyone doing fine. This is something we already did earlier as well. No questions on the query panel here. Any doubts, guys? Clear. Thanks, Rohani. Nice. So let's talk about the activity-based costing now. We are talking about some overheads given to us based on the drivers here. So purchasing department cost, we are saying number of purchase orders. So let's do that calculation. So we're talking about these overheads, and I think you can quickly do a cross check also in terms of the overheads we are looking at. What is the total number here? 28 lakh 20,000, right? Can anyone double check for me? Is it 28 lakhs 20,000? Let's double check that what we already considered. Yep. So I think what I'm trying to do here is just double checking that under the traditional costing, we had 240 per machine hour, right? So we have units sold, units produced and sold 7,500 and so on. So for the S, we had a overhead of 540 using the traditional. How 540,000? 240 into, like we basically what we're doing here is we calculated this per unit, right? 72. So 72 into 7,500. Similarly, we are just double checking this 96 into 12,500. So we're getting 12 lakhs here. And for product L, we are getting 120 into 9,000. So 10 lakh 80,000. So this is the overhead we already considered. We can just double check this. The total overhead comes out to be 28 lakh 20,000. I hope that is clear with everyone. So that we are not missing it. We are considering the same information for both the aspects. Right? So let's do that. Now for activity-based costing, what should be my first approach? ABC costing approach should be, or basically what is required here is to understand the cost drivers and maybe the rate per the per cost driver. So for example, we're talking about these overheads. We're saying that purchasing department cost. So we are looking at purchasing department cost 7 lakhs. So let's identify the rates first. 7 lakhs, and we are saying a number of purchase orders. What is the total number of purchase orders, guys? Who will tell me? Total number of purchase orders here? 90 plus 135 plus 125. I'm getting 350 here. So 350. You guys can correct me if there is any issue. So we are looking at a 2,000 per purchase order. Similarly, the next one is machine setup cost, 9 lakhs. That has to be allocated based on the number of machine setups. And they've given to us 120 plus 120 plus 160. How much is that? 400? Just let me know, guys. All okay till now? So 9 lakh divided by 400, we are getting 2250 per setup here. And then we have a QC cost 6,56,000. For that, we are given the purchase or the cost driver here is number of inspections. Do we have number of inspections? Yes, we have. So number of inspections are 100 plus 160 plus 140, which seems total of 400 here. Again. So 656,000 divided by 400, we're getting 1640. Any question so far? Any question so far? What was the last element? Machining cost, 564. So what is the total machine hours, guys? Machine hours are given to us indirectly. Machine hours per cost, right? So let's the machine hours calculation here. Machine hours per unit is given 0.30. So 2250 for product S. I'm multiplying the per unit into the number of units. 12,500 into zero point 0.4 gives us 5,000. And this becomes 4,500. So total machine hours is 2250 plus 5,000 plus 4,500. I'm getting 11,750. Guys, I need a confirmation here. Is everyone doing good till now? Thanks, sweetie. So sweetie says it seems to be 48. Okay, I can see a lot of answers coming in the query panel. Very nice. So sweetie is very much proactively answering all of. So 11,750 and we look at 564. That means 564,000 divided by 11,750. We're getting a 48 per hour. Very nice. So we got the drivers, we got the rate per driver, and then we can jump into the ABC costing approach, I guess. I'm sure you guys are fine with that approach. See, what doesn't change here under ABC, trust me, guys, is the material and labor. We're not worried about even the material and labor here. So what you need to consider is how we allocating the overhead cost to the respective products here. If I were to calculate the ABC approach, what I am sure here is that these two remain same here. So the direct material and labor remain same. So let's do this. Let's do this calculation under ABC approach. And we're looking at SML. And just as a side note, just mention the material cost and the labor cost as it is. So we are not changing that, of course, 158, 179, 250. And the labor cost is 40, 45, and 60. So what we are looking at is my material and labor is not changing, so that stays as it is, right? So you can call it as a prime cost or whatever. But what we need to work upon is now overheads. Just drawing a line here. We'll now allocate the overheads based on the workings we just did. So based on what we know, purchasing department cost 7 lakhs. We need to allocate that. So what was my rate we calculated? 2,000 per purchase order. So 2,000 per purchase order is giving me a number of purchase order for S is 90. So we're looking at 1,80,000 here. Is everyone with me on this? How we are doing this, guys? We are using the driver we have calculated. We are multiplying that with the purchase order. So purchase orders are 90 into 2,000. So it's in 90 into 2,000. So that gives us 1,80,000. Similarly, we got 135 into 2,000. It seems 2,70,000 here. And for L, mind you, these are total overheads. We will have to divide these by number of units to get the overhead per unit. So do not miss out that part, please. So the next one is your product L, 125. So we're taking 250 here. And you guys can check that whether we have taken into account the entire 7 lakhs or not. So 180 plus 270 plus 250 seems 7 lakhs is done here. Next one is machine setup, which was 2250 per setup here. So how many number of setups we have for S? 120. So S and M have 120 setups. 120 into 2250. I'm getting 270 here. 120 into 2250. Same is for product M because there are same numbers of setup here. I hope everyone doing good till now. And then we have 160 setups for L. 160 into 2250, we're getting a 360. Keep a check that are we allocating all the overheads? I believe yes, because we are having 9 lakhs and we have allocated the 9 lakhs here for machine setup. Next one is QC cost, which is 1640 per inspection. So for S, we had 100 inspections into 1640 means 154. We have 160 inspections for M. So 160 into 1640, we're getting 2,62,400. And we are getting 140 for L. 140 into 1640. We're getting 2,29,600. Is everyone doing good till this point? Same to thanks for confirming. I hope others are doing good. Ruhani, Kiran, PT, Sumit. Hemant, sure. So what I will do is after the session, we will re-upload the PPT with these solutions. That's what you want, right? Anyways, these are part of your previous year questions, guys. So you will probably see that in the suggested answers also. Don't worry, I will upload him. Okay. Okay. The next one is machine cost, right? 48 we did. Machine hours. 48 number of hours we calculated 2250 into 48, which gives us 1,08,000 here, because we have calculated 48 here, and on the information slide we have calculated machine hours at the bottom here. So 48 into 5,000, we're getting 2,40,000, and 48 into 4,500, we're getting 2,16,000 now. So this is my share of overheads going into all the products. So let's add these up for a moment. What are the total overheads? Because then we will have to divide that by number of units to get the overhead per unit here. So 180 plus 270, 450, 450 plus 270, we are getting a 272 rather. So we are getting a 722,000 here for product S. Here we are getting 10,42,400. We are getting, it's 11 lakh or 10 lakhs, guys. Just give me a quick second. Okay, it should be 10,55,600. So 7,22,000 for S, 10,42,400 for M and 10,55,600 for N. Now, that means this is my total overheads, and we already know the units of them of the respective products is 7,500, 12,500, and 9,000. This is what we have from the information: 7,500, 12,500, 9,000. That means overhead cost per unit is 96.27 for product S. For M, we are getting 83.39. And for M, we are getting, wow, 117.29, guys. It'd be great if you guys can double check this. So 96, 83, and 117. So if I add all these three up, what are the three sections we are looking at here? Material, labor, and overhead. So what's the cost per unit? So 198 plus 96.27, 294.27 here. We're getting 307.39. And we are getting the last one as 427.29. 294, 307, and 427. And we also had to add the 40% margin here. So we will get a selling price. So 294.27 plus 40% is giving us 411.98. Similarly, 307 gives us 430.35. And the L becomes 598.21. This is after adding 40% profit here. The most interesting part here is, this is just the part 1 and part 2 done, right? The requirement of the question was calculate the total cost per unit, selling price per unit for each of the methods. So that's what we have done. Third part is calculate the difference between A and B and to check whether it is overpriced and underpriced. So let's do one thing. We calculate the selling price here, right, in the traditional costing. So let's kind of plot that here. Under traditional costing, what are we doing? 378, 448, and 602. So I need your analysis here, guys. What do you think? Is S underpriced or overpriced? Is S underpriced or overpriced? Under traditional costing, guys. Let's see your answers. People on Zoom can also respond. Is S underpriced or overpriced? Sweetie says S is underpriced because you are pricing it at 378 instead of 411, so it is underpriced. Similarly, I think you were slightly pricing the other two products. So I think 18 per unit was overpriced in terms of the M. I would say L is almost same, but yeah, slightly overpriced. Instead of 598, you're kind of making it as a 602. So I hope Hemant says S is overpriced. Why we are saying that? Overpriced of the other two, yes. I think Hemant, you probably changed. I think that's fine. I hope you realize that, right? This is actually underpriced, right? So I hope this gives a good idea, guys, how to solve a full-fledged question in terms of, Sweetie, absolutely correct. So this is a very, very good. So this is basically one of your recent exam questions, nothing else. Even that's fine. So it's a recent exam question, guys, and I think we have solved it comprehensively from top to bottom. And I think if you are able to solve it, if you're able to understand it, 10 marks are in the pockets here. So that's the best part. You have to understand the step-by-step approach and show your detailed workings. If any assumption has to be taken, please give those assumptions as well. But I can go for one more question of for practice, but I can see time already 9:05. So I would like to open the house here for any questions till now. People on Zoom, people on the query panel, any questions on this topic or on the absorption costing? Because I hope you guys are realizing that we are under ABC, we're actually covering both the topics simultaneously. Absorption costing as well as activity-based costing, because that's the part of the question. So asking everyone any questions, please. Sweetie, Sumit, Abhay, Sushil, any question, guys? Uni Krishnan here on Zoom, Kiran, Sayanto, Hemant, Ruhani, any questions, please let me know. No doubts. So are you guys, if there are no doubts, are we guys geared up for one more question? Is everyone ready for one more question? You guys can probably target it. And I think this time I want you to take the lead. What do you think, Hemant? We'll go step by step again, but I want you to tell me the answers this time, right? I think on the query panel, Sweetie was very, I think, pretty much ahead. Every time she was giving the response. Now I want others also to give me the answers for this one. So let's move ahead for another question here. We can tackle this together. Let's see what is the requirement. More or less fundamentals of these questions, the logic of these questions pretty much remains the same. So if you understand the concept, you can attempt questions given in various forms. So let's see this one. This is also from one of your previous exams, guys. A drugstore is presently selling three types of drugs, drug A, B, and C. Due to some constraints, it has decided to go only for one product line of drugs. It has provided the following data for 2021 for each product line A, B, and C. Revenues is given, COGS, number of POs, number of deliveries, hours of shelf stocking, and number of units sold. And there are also information given on the right hand side. We're looking at drug licensing fees. Then we're looking at cost allocation to be distributed between the ratio of 2:3:5. So they're helping us in that activity analysis already. So that's good part. Then we are looking at ordering. Number of purchase orders are given to us, delivery, shelf stocking, and also the customer support. So what is my total cost, guys? Total overhead cost. What is my total overhead cost if I want to quickly add them up? What you guys to give me the answers this time? Let me know if you guys are getting 92 lakhs, 10,000 here. Okay, so let's understand the call of the question then. What is the call of the question here? So you are required to calculate the operating income, and operating income is a percentage of the revenue of each product if all the support cost other than COGS are allocated in the ratio of COGS. That means that this thing, all the overheads in the ratio of COGS here. Or second scenario, all the support costs are allocated using activity based. So what is the parameter for traditional costing here? Ratio of COGS, right? We discussed there could be various parameters like material, prime cost, labor cost. So we are talking about COGS here, percentage of COGS here. And we have to give our opinion choosing the product line. This is important, guys. This is analysis part, which is important for you guys. Give your opinion about choosing the product line on the basis of operating income as a percentage of revenue for each product under both the situations. So both the situations you have to give your opinion, okay, which product line. Because remember, this drugstore is planning, is deciding to go only for one product line going forward, maybe instead of three product lines. So there, I would see that your analytical mindset should come into play. So let's kind of solve this together based on the requirement. I think the first part is we can look at the traditional costing, I guess. We are looking at support costs are allocated on the basis of COGS, part one. So let's do that. You guys can take a snapshot of this slide if you want, so that facts are in front of you guys. Anyone who wants to take a snapshot, because we'll be moving on to the working slide now. And there you guys will be responding parallelly or even ahead of me. I request everyone to participate here. This practice is for you guys. So let's tackle a traditional costing or percentage of COGS. That's what given to us in this case. And we're looking at three drugs here, A, B, and C. So the revenue given to us is 7450, 1 crore 11 lakh, and 1 crore 86 lakhs. Of course, your COGS is also given to us 41, 44, 500. This is nothing but given information. Now the point here is we need to identify what will be the support cost allocated in this COGS ratio. How do we allocate this? How do we allocate this? So if I look at what is the total COGS in this case, we may also have to identify that also. What is the total COGS case? 44 lakh, 41 lakh, 44,500 plus 68 lakhs plus 1 crore 28 lakhs. So what is my total COGS? So who will help me with the total COGS number? Santo says 2 crores 30 lakhs 25,000. Thanks, Santo. I think that matches my calculation as well. So that means if I were to allocate these costs as percentage of COGS, so what will be my percentage here for the support cost? I think 92 lakhs 10,000 for the total cost, and 2 crores 30 lakhs 25,000. So as a percentage here, I'm getting 40%. Is everyone is getting the same? For the traditional costing, are we all allocating this as 40%? So this is our working we need to know, guys. So support cost will be 40% of COGS. That's a traditional method which is given to us. People on the query panel, everyone doing good? So please tell me what will be the support cost if I have to allocate based on the costs. Are we getting 16,57,800? What will be the support cost for B? Thanks, Sumit. I can see more and more people answering now, so that's very nice. I think you guys are with me. I want everyone to be parallelly working towards, guys. I don't want anyone to be left behind here. So I will wait after this to confirm if you guys are getting these support costs or not. Thanks, Sayanto. Thanks a lot. Sayanto has just confirmed that these numbers are looking good here. So if we have this cost, mind you, the requirement of this question is very, very different actually. So the requirement was to calculate the operating income as a percentage of the revenue. So we are calculating operating income and operating income as a percentage. So we have to calculate the operating income now. It is just a work cut out for us. So we're getting 74 lakhs 50,000 minus 41 44 500 minus 16 57 800. So we're getting 16 lakhs 47,700 for product A, drug A. And similarly, I'm getting 16 lakhs 31,550 here. And we are getting 17 lakh 35,750. Double check your calculations, double check my calculations, of course, why not? So in that case, what will be your percentage of operating income with the with revenue here? So I need answers from you guys. I need answers now from you guys. What is the percentage you guys are getting? Then I will reflect my answers here. But I want you guys to tell me first. Same to says for A it is 22.12. What for others? Anyone on the query panel? 14.6 for B. Perfect. Yeah, that means my workings are kind of matching with you guys. We're looking 9.32 must be for C then. That's what we are getting at. And the next point is in terms of ABC, which I guess everyone knows that now how to calculate. So becomes my job becomes very easy here because what we need to do here is to calculate what will be the cost per driver here. So what will be the drug license fee? So we're talking about based on 2 is to 3 is to 5. So a lot of these, so we have to allocate between A, B, and C these costs, right, based on the ABC system. So let's do that quickly. So I think what will remain same is these two sections. So we can kind of freeze in these two sections here if you guys are okay with that. Revenue and costs is all okay, but we have to allocate the overhead here. So under ABC costing, approach, we have to just ensure that support cost is reallocated. So support cost includes drug license fees. Drug license, they have told us to allocate 5 lakhs in the ratio of 2 is to 3 is to 5. So getting 1 lakhs, 150 and 2,50,000. The next one is ordering cost. I want you guys to tell me, how do I go about this ordering cost? They've given us 2,000 as POs. You guys can quickly check also, does this 2,000 match with the given information? Number of POs, 560 plus 810 plus 630. I think it matches, right? Yeah, it matches 2,000. So, 8 lakh 30,000 divided by 2,000. That means we are looking at a 415 per purchase order. 415 per purchase order, guys. Everyone okay here? 415 per purchase order. So we just multiply that section to our purchase orders. So PO cost 415 into 560. Getting 2,32,400. 810 into 415. 336,150. And we are getting 630 into 415. 261, 450 till now. So let's move on quickly to the next one. Delivery. Delivery is based on 2,800 deliveries. We can double check. 950 plus 1,000 plus 850. Absolutely correct. So we are looking at 2,800 deliveries, guys. So what will be my allocation rate based on the ABC? So 18 lakh 20,000 divided by 2,800. So per delivery, I'm getting 650 here. Guys, can you please confirm this for me? 650 is okay with everyone? Thanks, Ayanto. So let me wait for your answer then. How do we allocate these delivery cost? So while I do my calculations, I want you to disclose the answers here. So I'm getting some answers. Delivery cost in the ratio, it will be allocated, sir. So are we getting 617, 500, 650, and 552? Come on, guys, we need to quickly catch up here. Then we have a shelf stocking cost here. Shelf stocking cost. Now, shelf stocking cost is total amount is 32 lakhs and 4,500 hours of shelf stocking. So are we having that shelf stocking here, 4,500, which can be matched? Yeah, so I think what Sayanto said, that we can actually use. So Sayanto, you're right. So I think the other way Sayanto is recommending, like, again, that's a shortcut, but again, I'm not using the shortcut here because I'm just going with a per hour and then multiplying. Otherwise, you can use these ratios also. That is absolutely correct. So 32 lakh 40,000 divided by 4,500, we are getting 720 per hour. Shelf stocking is 720 per hour. So it means 720 into 900. You get 648 here. We are getting 9 lakhs here. And we are getting 16 lakh 92,000 for C. I think that already gives me a little bit of a eyebrows raise in that, okay, that there is a little bit of a variation coming in. Good cost going into drug C here. A lot of shelf stocking time involved. This is a kind of analysis ABC helps us to do. And the last part was customer support, guys. Part of this is customer support cost, which is 28 lakhs 20,000, 4 lakhs 70,000 units sold. So I think that should be matching as well, right? So 175 200 plus 150 plus 144. So we look at 4 lakhs 70,000 units. So that means per unit is how much? 28 lakh 20,000 divided by 4 lakh 70,000. So per unit is 6 per unit, guys. 6 per unit. So 175 200 into 6. We're looking at 10 51 200. 150 300 into 6. 901 800. And 144 500 into 6. 867. Thanks, Ento. Ooh, that was a quite of an effort, right? So I think everyone has got it. So let's see how much have we allocated here. How much have we allocated here? So let's kind of quickly do the catch-up cost, total overhead support cost here. Total support cost under ABC. So we're looking at 1 lakhs plus 232 400 plus 617 500. So we're getting 26 lakhs 49,100 here. Please double check the calculations once. We are getting 29 lakh 37,950 here. And we are getting 36 lakhs 22,950. If you guys agree with me, we are getting operating income now, taking the top revenue and costs, which remains as is 7450 minus 41 44 500 minus 26 49 100, and I'm getting 6 lakhs 56,400 here. Similarly, for product B, getting 14 lakhs 20,300. Thanks, Anto. Can anyone tell me for C now? So I'm getting two responses, 29 lakh, absolutely perfect. So we're getting 29 lakh 38,300. So let's see how much is this in terms of the percentage, guys? So percentage of operating income here, then we will do some analysis part, because this is just a calculation what we have been doing so far. But we also have to do the analysis, that is the last part of the question. 656 400 divided by, so this is 8.81, 12.71, and 15.78. Wow. Look at this comparison, guys. What's happening? You're looking at 8.81. So let's do this product by everyone with me on this. I can give 1 minute for everyone to reach at this stage. Can halt for 1 minute, then we'll do analysis. Hope everyone is on the same page here. Kiran, Sweetie over there, Sumit. I think Sumit, I can see your responses. Very nice. Uni Krishnan, Sushil, all doing good, guys. I'm just hoping that you guys are with me on this. Because if you guys have calculated this, I think Sayanto were anyways ahead of the game. So we are looking at these numbers. Look at our analysis part now. We are looking at 22% versus 8.81. That means traditional costing actually made product drug A as most attractive. I think the best analysis would be here A versus C. Let me use a red pen here. My traditional costing say that okay, product drug A is most profitable, but if I do a little bit of a deep dive, I see drug C as most profitable, guys. Do you think so? So if I would have been following my traditional costing mechanism, I believe I would have taken a decision of continuing drug A. Whereas I feel with the detailed aligning of the cost to the activities, I believe continuing drug C makes more sense. What do you think? What do you think, guys? So drug C seems, again, the point here is in terms of what's happening here is in terms of that is why we are looking at this is probably because of aligning the cost. Activities that driving the cost are probably least for product C. Also, you can see, of course, in terms of the revenue also. There are other analysis also. If I see the revenue at the top, it's a top revenue product anyways, top selling product, drug C. But the traditional costing was telling me that the least revenue generating drug A was actually most profitable, guys. Do you agree with me? So do you think your analysis part is covered here that your analysis completely changes? C was least profitable under the traditional costing, whereas C is the most profitable under the activities. What is the reason for this analysis? Uh, I think I would say in terms of the cost allocation. So look at the total support cost also. My total individual support cost, like something like shelf stocking cost, was significantly heavy with the drug C. However, if I look at the total support cost, uh, my total support cost is reduced from 48 lakhs to 36 lakhs in the traditional one, right? Let me draw an arrow here. So look at this. My total support cost has gone down from 48 lakh to 36 lakhs because of the activities consumed. Maybe what we are looking at that we just applied the standard ratio of the COGS. See, the point is the drawback here is, my friends, that why did that happen? Because in my traditional costing, I use percentage of COGS. Do you agree if an entity use percentage of costs for allocating the support cost or the overhead cost, then the top revenue generating product will always eat up the maximum support cost because the costs will be higher. Logical है. Because अगर sales ज़्यादा है, costs will always be more, right? So my costs were higher for product C, and hence because of that, my approach was percentage of costs. I allocated more support costs. I never looked at, what are the activities. That is why the support cost of 48 lakhs were allocated to product C, but whereas the actual allocation is 36 lakhs, that significantly increased the operating margin from 17 lakhs 35,000 to 29 lakh 38,000. So I think it's a clear conclusion here that ABC help is in lot of things, right? It's like taking correct decision making. We discussed that ABC helping us as a decision making tool. ABC helping is activity based management. ABC helping us in activity based budgeting as well. So this question is a classic example of that. I hope everyone with me on this. Everyone crystal clear on the analysis part, please. Can you please confirm? So everyone here on the Zoom, Sento, Kiran, everyone doing good? Jay Lakshmi, Hemant, Ruhani, any questions from anyone? Okay, if that's the case, guys, I think that's it from us for now. So we are looking at, okay, there's one more question uploaded, guys. This is nothing but from your study material. So this is something you guys can try later on. I think this is the last question of study material, baby soft. So you can, this is for your practice, and I will re-upload this file with the solutions which we have done in the class. Some people were asking for that, so don't worry. You will see these workings in the file which I will be re-uploading. So thanks a lot for joining in, guys. I think perfect response, perfect participation today. That was classic involvement by many students, and thanks a lot. And I wish you all the best of luck. We'll meet soon in some further sessions later on, though. And I wish you best of luck. Let me remind you your three shortcuts of success. Rather, no shortcuts of success. Continue your practice, practice, and practice. Continue your hard work. More practice you do, more proficiency, more logical understanding of the subject will automatically come into your minds. Thanks, guys. Have a nice day. Best of luck. Cheers to everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir.